Hello and welcome to Roman Studies 202, Modernism to the Present. And today I'm very pleased and excited and privileged to be talking to Anne Goldstein, who is a former, I think, editor at the New Yorker, long-standing editor at the New Yorker, but also well known for her translations from Italian that include translations of authors such as Elsa Ferrante and Primo Levi, but perhaps above all, Elena Ferrante and the Neapolitan Quartet. We're going to be talking about the first of those four books, which is translated as My Brilliant Friend. So thank you so much for your time, for being willing to talk about this book here. And obviously, you're in a unique situation as translator. You're both a reader of the book and to some extent also a writer of the book. Every word we read is a word that you have also written. But
Thank you for recognizing that.
it's true, and I hope we may get to this later as well. You're in a particularly perhaps strange position with the Elena Ferrante's book,
Yeah,
because normally the translator is almost invisible for good or
right.
for ill,
Mhm.
and you've become, in some ways, because of Elena Ferrante's reticence to appear and present herself in public. I read there's an article which calls you the face of Elena Ferrante, for instance. But
Mhm.
I'm gonna. My first question is to you as a reader, and to ask you how would you, as a reader, approach this book?
As a reader, well, as a reader, I mean, I sort of have to start at the beginning because as a reader, I started with The Days of Abandonment, her second novel, actually, her first to be published here, and the first one that I read and translated. That was a very powerful, if you haven't read it, I'm sure you have, but it's a very powerful, very short novel. It's like 200 pages.
Hmm.
And she also wrote two other novels, two other short novels, about 200 pages, that were also very intense. They covered a woman's experience, but within a very short time period. And so when I got My Brilliant Friend, I was I wasn't the only one, but I mean I was really stunned because it was so long and it was and it was only the first book of what turned out to be a quadrilogy. I forget how you're supposed to say it. Um, and which her editors, she originally wanted to publish it all as one book,
Oh, okay.
and her editors were like, I mean, not that she had written it all, but she thought it. I mean, and it really is one big book
Hmm.
in a sense, but it would have been a little bit unwieldy, I think. Anyway, so I mean, so my approach was kind of coming from what is this creature from someone who's done something so totally different up to now, uh, and it was kind of amazing. It was just so different and yet just as powerful, really, even though it was spread out over whatever 60 years or something. Well, maybe not 60, but 50, let's say. And whereas these other books took place in a very short time.
And
Um,
and you mentioned one of the things that first struck you in reading Ferrante was I think you mentioned two things there: the intensity and
mhm.
the focus on a women's or a woman's um, life, I suppose,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
of course the thread that guides us through the 50 years or so of the four books here. For this class, the students are only reading the first, but although we get the sense, we know from the prologue,
Hmm.
we
That
get the
it's going to
sense
go on.
exactly that which sets up a sort of mystery about
Yeah.
about what has happened
Hmm.
to Lenu, no, to Leela, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, but the thread that connects and that runs through this book and then the
Hmm.
other books is this relationship between these two, well, girls
Yeah.
to start off with, and as they become women
Hmm.
and they pass through various stages of life. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that relationship between, well, the narrator, Elena Lenu, and her friend, Lina or Lila or Raffaella Cerullo, and how you see that again, perhaps particularly in this first volume.
Well, I mean, obviously, as you said, that's what the story revolves around, the relationship between the two girls, women. Um, but a lot of it takes place separately. Not so much in the first book. In the first book, they're mostly they're together, and it's a relationship that I wouldn't say it evolves. I would say it just continues to go back and forth between really, you could say a love and hatred, and yet the sense that they can't do without each other. And I think it's an important um, point. Of course, we're always seeing it only through one person's eyes, except when she supposedly reads this diary of Leela's. But we don't really know what Leela thinks, and
Right.
that's kind of part of the um, you could almost call it frustration, but part of what makes it so strong in a way, because you don't really know what she's thinking, but there's a lot of you can think of it about her in a lot of different ways. Um, I mean, I was very, I mean, partly because it's hard not to identify with a first person narrator when you're translating, but also because I just identified more with Lenu, but partly because she was this narrator, partly because what kind of person she is. Um, so I kind of, to me, Leela was always a mystery. I mean, I never felt that I knew what was going on with her, but, um, but yeah. So anyway, I think that that's really what it's really about, that relationship and and the little relationships that go off of it, with their parents, their lovers, their husbands, all those different um, ramifications, really, of that one strong relationship, stronger really than their relationship with their families,
Right.
in a way.
And back to the prologue with which this book begins, or the
Hmm.
it, it we know that Leela has disappeared
Right,
and tried to erase all markers of herself as well, photos and so on.
right,
So,
yeah.
so in some way also, and Lenu starts, the narrator starts this account, which is going to be 4 volumes,
Yeah.
really angry, and she says she
Hmm.
can't. It's as if she can't get away with this, and as
Hmm.
though she wants to capture her friend
Hmm.
in writing, and she's
Exactly, yeah.
right, and that sense of trying to describe somebody who always threatens to escape in lots of different ways, but who is hard to
Mhm.
understand, as you're saying, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, she is, and the whole, I mean, it's not a new concept of trying to capture somebody on a page, but it's always being held against the person. I mean, she's writing about her, but she's also observing her and
Mhm.
interacting with her. So I think it's a complicated something complicated that she's trying to do, that Ferrante is trying to do, that Lanu is trying to do.
I was struck when I first read this book. The
Hmm.
title is obviously My Brilliant Friend. And for much of the first, again, this book I'm talking about, the first volume now, just for
Yeah, yeah, sure.
the time being. And for much of the time, it seems obvious, or it appears obvious.
Hmm.
Typically, it's my brilliant friend is in the first person, and that Leela it is brilliant
Uh-huh.
in so many ways
Yeah.
because she learns to read on her own and so on. She's obviously a force of nature. Um,
Uh-huh.
but in fact, when the phrase turns up,
Hmm.
it is Leela who's calling Lenu, the narrator, the brilliant
Yeah.
friend. And that suddenly turned everything around for me, at least,
Uh-huh.
as to the way in which, um, yes, I suppose we don't know what Leela thinks, but we do hear her speak. And when she
Yeah.
called, what would you say about that title and that turnaround moment, almost at the end of the novel?
It is kind of startling, but at the same time, it shouldn't have been so startling
Aha.
because of the constant turnarounds in the relationship. I mean, it's true. Lanu is always trying to catch, or feels that she's always trying to catch up to Leela. But then, she has these moments where she's she's the stronger one. I mean, if you want to put it that way. I mean, that's kind of simplistic, but you know what I mean. I mean, she's she's doing better.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
or
especially over the course of the quartet,
yeah, that's true.
she's the one who seems to gain success, right? But even here now, I
Yes.
see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's a successful. I mean, in the world, she's successful. Oh, but then Leela also is successful in the world, as it turns out.
Right.
Um,
Later on.
later on. But it just goes so it's so back and forth. I guess I never, from my point of view, I'm always on this very focused, small point of view, if you want to put it that way. I never really thought of, I never really think of it as a whole. I mean, I think of it as a whole arc of a life, obviously, or of lives, but not, the back and forth of it, the sort of the thread of it. Because actually, didn't, small point, but it's interesting. I mean, I hadn't read the whole book
Right.
when I translated the first volume, or when I read the first volume, the rest of it hadn't been written yet. So I didn't know what was going to happen, what was
Right.
coming up. So in a way, I kept my small, narrow point of view the whole time. Um,
Right. No, that's interesting. I do kind of wonder, this is a question about translation. Did that make you later on when you were translating volume three, volume four,
mhm.
rethink some of your translation choices in
Totally,
volume one?
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I thought, well, I mean, the obvious one to me at least was I decided to call the big street in that neighborhood the Stradone, not to translate it, to
Uh-huh.
explain what it was. And then which I think it worked in the first volume, but then it came up so much later. I thought, I don't really know that that was such a good decision. I don't know that I would have made that decision if I'd known how it was going to play out. It's a small point, but it's things like, but those are the kinds of things that you rethink. Um,
Well, absolutely. And of course, as the quartet goes along, it
mhm.
expands geographically. It
Also true.
in this first volume, we're in Naples, and we're almost entirely in the Stradone in the
Yeah.
working class
In that
neighborhood
neighborhood. Yeah.
in which the girls grew up. And there's one passage in which they go to the sea, and
Mhm.
it's the first time, even though Naples is a port
On
city
sea. Yeah,
on the
I know.
sea.
That's an amazing scene.
It shows to some extent the restrictions of their lives. There's a lot going
Yeah.
on in the neighborhood,
Right.
but what lies beyond the neighborhood is a
Yeah.
sort of site of dreams and perhaps also nightmares,
Yeah.
insofar as there are dangers that lurk
Yeah.
beyond. I wonder if you could say a little bit about that, about writing Naples and translating Naples as well.
Well, Naples is a complicated place. I mean, physically or geographic, I don't know how you want to put it, but I had been to Naples in the past, but not for some time, and I didn't go while I was working on these books, which I'm kind of sorry about. But I mean, I sort of had a sense of the geography and what was going on, and I mean, it is I mean, neighborhoods are very uh, closed in a way and very important. Like, the Solar brothers. I mean, that's their little kingdom in a way, and I think, and Ferrante, she doesn't really do much description.
Hmm.
So, you're really describe what you end up are describing. I mean, I think it's important, at least it was important for me to have an idea, to have a picture of these places. But I think what you end up describing is really a network of relationships, a kind of psychological neighborhood rather than an actual place. And that the trip to the sea, when they try to walk to the sea, that's one of the few times that the place is described, like the road and the place, yeah, and the ponds. That's sort of that's another place that's described. But mostly you're just, you know, they sometimes go into the main part of the city, which is a kind of a frightening experience as it turns out. Um, but still, there's not much physical sense. And so you have to create that with the psychology of the characters, with the relationships between the characters, I think.
And as you say, in the neighborhood, there are all these relationships, there are all these families, so much so that I don't know. I haven't read the Italian. I've only read the translation. You start the translation starts with this index of characters. I'm not sure if does the Italian do the same?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, they did that in the Italian book. And yeah,
but a sort of recognition that you need to keep hold of mentally these
yeah,
different
those
families and
people.
the
Yeah,
children and so on.
right.
Um, and so as the girls grow up, they interact in different ways
Uh-huh.
with boys, for instance, and
Yeah,
that becomes important. And with this book ends with a wedding.
the wedding, yeah.
Um, but then the wedding is sort of broken up
Right.
as we have the character come in who the
Mhm.
uninvited guest, right, or well,
Right,
appears.
exactly.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that web of connections that make up, as you say, much of this book.
Well, it's definitely a web and it's definitely complicated and you never know you really, it's the whole Camorra thing, the whole mafia background is really background. And
Yeah,
it's only later, I think that for me at least that I mean I didn't really think about it that way. I thought these are the bad guys and these are, but later when you think about it and you think about the history and the reality of Naples, you realize that there is this whole sort of dark part that Ferrante it's there for sure. But she doesn't, it's not specific, except as embodied in these brothers and their family. But you don't, but it's not overt, I guess is what I mean.
that
You don't really,
I no, I understand exactly, and also this is in some ways a historical book.
it is total, yeah, definitely.
It traces Italy again, if we think about the quartet, but it traces
Mhm.
Italy from the 1950s, from the early 1950s. I think no dates are exactly given, but
No, it's sort of I think late 40s, I
late,
would say.
from shortly after the end of the
Yeah,
Second World War.
exactly.
And then
Yeah.
again, in later books, we get to the 1960s and we get to
Mhm.
the political mobilizations of the 60s and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. And yet, as you say, history, like those kind of sociological
Mhm.
issues of the mafia, the Camorra, and so on, it is in the background. It's vital in some ways, but
Mhm.
Ferrante never sort of turns to describe or to editorialize about it at all.
Right, exactly, exactly. It's always, she keeps it from the one point of view in a way, but how the history affects Lenu and Lila to some extent. And there are the communist meetings, there's Pasquale, there is a political element, but it's always from the point of view of the characters. It's not like a historical novel, even though
Right.
it is a historical novel in a way, because as you say, it covers that whole arc of 20th century, half of the 20th century. Um,
I've got one specific question of an element which repeats and is intriguing, which is the dissolving margins, and
oh yeah,
maybe that's also I wonder about that as a translation question as well.
yeah.
But there are a couple of these moments through this book in which um, Leela experiences or is said to experience dissolving margins. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about those moments.
They're very important, I think, obviously. And they have this word. I mean, to me, again, it was kind of a word problem
Mhm, mhm.
in a way. I mean, because she does describe it, how the margins, how the edges of everything dissolve basically, and things seem to move into each other. Uh, and actually, I think this is the thing. The second book, I think, is where the earthquake happens,
Mhm.
and where it's much more. specific. The concept is developed in a more specific way, but it's clear. And and how you describe that is 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 difficult. I mean, it's difficult in Italian. There's a word. I mean, it's sort of a made up. It's not really a made up word, but it's sort of made up in that context, smarginatura. So to put that into English was hard. I'm just talking about the word,
Yep, yep, yep.
not the feeling. But the feeling I think is it's like a pause in the whole story. It's like suddenly things aren't so straightforward. I mean, in you could say in the hard edges between Lenu and Leela, in the clashes between them, suddenly this is a stop, and it's like everything is, wait, where are we? You don't really even know where you are. Where for both of them, I think, even though Leela is the one who experiences it. So I think it's important, it's crucial in that way. And then, of course, Leela's wish to dissolve herself in the end is, you could say, a result, not a result, but it follows from that. So yeah.
And then
But
talking about language, of course, in this book, much of what happens or we're described takes place or is spoken in what you've translated as dialect, right? In Neapolitan, rather than in standard Italian. Although the whole book is written with a few words, a few exceptions,
exactly,
in
yeah.
in standard Italian. I wonder about, and in the HBO series, of course, there's dialect is used, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could say a little bit about that, about these two languages, which have their own characteristics in
Hmm.
in the book. When people
Yeah.
we're told that somebody speaks dialect,
Hmm.
um, uh, and when they speak Italian, they say different things, or it has different repercussions or different connotations.
Yeah. Well, what I think of as kind of an emblematic moment of that is early in the book when the girls go to visit Don Achille, who's actually the bad guy of the neighborhood, to get their dolls back. And first of all, the whole thing of going up the stairs together, or Lenu following Leela, and the sort of back and forth of who's braver. I mean, or that they're putting their bravery together in a way. But when they get to the top and they speak to Don Achille, and then uh, the parting words are spoken by Lenu, and they are in Italian after this whole dialogue has been in dialect, and it's like she's saying, I'm not one of you, and this is I'm dividing myself now. It's really it's kind of it's amazing. I mean, and Ferrante just she doesn't she I mean she doesn't put part of the conversation in dialect and part of it in Italian. As you said, she writes all in Italian. But it's a beautiful moment in a way.
Uh,
But I think
and of course, we're almost out of time. There's much more we could say. Of course,
okay.
the language also has to do with education because it's
Exactly. It symbolizes so many different things, and it changes. I mean, and Lenu first she speaks dialect, then she learns Italian in school, and then she learns a different Italian when she's at the university. She finds that her school Italian is useless or pathetic in some
yeah.
way. So, and it's really, and then when she gets involved with her in-laws, it's different again. So it's complicated. It's just like another set of hierarchies and relationships.
Let me close with just a couple of questions about your role as a translator. Um, was this something that came to you, or is this something that you put in for, as it were? I wonder how
What?
that worked in this particular case.
As I said earlier, the first book was that the publisher, Europa Editions, it was they were just debuting as a publishing company in America. It's an Italian publishing company, Edizione AO. And the first book was The Days of Abandonment, and they did ask about 5 people to do samples.
Hmm.
So this was a contest I won, which I was really glad about because I was I was really desperate to do this book. And so once I started doing Ferrante, I stayed with it. And so this was, it was sort of naturally came to me.
And as I think I mentioned at the beginning, because of Ferrante's own reticence to appear,
Yeah,
and the fact that Ferrante the name is a pseudonym, you have a certain visibility again as a
right.
translator. How do you feel you are called upon to speak for Ferrante? I mean, you do. That's what a translator does to some extent. It speaks for
Yeah.
the author that they are translating.
Yeah. Well, of course, in this case, it was a little bit more extreme
Yes.
to be speaking for the author or in the place of the author who wasn't going to speak. I first of all, when it first started happening, of course, it really surprised me because I didn't think that was part of the job,
Hmm.
but it turned out to be part of the job in a way. And I always try to make it clear that I can't speak for the author. I mean, I'm not the author. I can't answer a question about, how did you think up this kind of thing, or a real author question, but I can speak about the book or about the books. But it was complicated and as I say, it was kind of surprising. But I felt that it was important too. For 2 reasons. I mean, one, because I think the books are really important and really good, and everybody should read them. But I also felt that it was important to bring attention to the translator. I mean, I felt that I was speaking for all translators, really, in bringing forward the fact that the book you're reading, that's why I was so pleased when you said these are your words. I was like, you know, um, this book was written by a different person. I mean, the words are those of a different person, not the author, but of the translator. And I don't want to over exalt the translator, but there is this person through whom you are reading this book. So I guess I thought it was important to make that effort.
That seems like a perfect place to end. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time and thoughts on this fantastic book, which you have made available to those of us who don't speak or don't read Italian. Thank you so much
Okay.
for that.
Okay. Thank you.